Hello, hockey family. My name is Jeff Kresge, and I wanted to welcome you to the 2021-2022 version of the Jamestown Bantam A hockey team. I'm glad to have you aboard. I am the head coach, and I've got two assistants that are super capable. Dimitri Theophilactides, who's been around with our team for a long time, and new to the team, but not to the organization, Mike Brown. And we'll talk about both of those fine gentlemen in just a second. As far as my coaching philosophy goes, it's remarkably consistent. We want to develop young men and women that are very well-rounded, both on the ice and off the ice. So we want them to be great players and great people. In addition, we want to make sure that the playing time is roughly equivalent. I'm not going to put our best 5 players on the ice for 2/3 of the game. We've all paid the same. I want to make sure that all of our kids feel equally valued. That's being said, there might be circumstances, power plays, shorthanded situations, for example, that we want to get certain chemistry out on the ice. And finally, I want to mention that our team rule has always been the same. Be professional, ladies and gentlemen. I stole this a long time ago from Washington Lee University for use in my classroom, and I found it translates very well to the classroom and in the hockey locker room as well. If we lead ourselves as professional ladies and gentlemen, we'll be just fine. In terms of the team this year, we've got 20 great young men and women that are going to be donning the Lakers uniforms. I have to tell you that we have never had this large of a team, so I was a little concerned about it at first, trying to figure out how we're going to make this all work with the personalities and the talent levels, et cetera, and the backgrounds. But the kids have been absolutely fantastic. We'll talk about Mike Brown in a second, but as I was talking to Mike, the new assistant coach, about these players, I said, they're super coachable, they're great kids, and you're going to love them. And he thought, okay, yeah, whatever. Everybody says that all the time. But he skated over to me the other day after practice and he says, you know, you were exactly right. These are great kids. They listen, they work hard, they do what they're supposed to do. And if they make mistakes, it's because they're trying, not because they're not trying. So they're absolutely coachable and they're going to be a joy to be around. So if you haven't met all the kids personally, please do so because they are a joy. For coaches this year, I'll be the head coach, and we've got 2 delightful assistant coaches. Dimitri Theophilactides, longtime assistant coach. He'll be heading up the goalies this year, so he'll be working with Logan and Staffy, and also be working with both the offense and the defense with me. And we've got to fill Jack Windsor's shoes. Jack left to go to greener pastures, or maybe browner pastures out in Montana, but pastures nonetheless. Out in Montana, he's starting his career as a teacher, so we wish Jack the best of luck. We've got big shoes to fill. So I scoured high and low and found Mike Brown. Mike Brown is a longtime parent and coach in the Lakers organization, longtime hockey guy and fellow Sabres fan. So he's got that going for him. Mike has forgotten more about hockey than I know. So I think Mike is going to be a perfect fit. He's a quiet guy, but I think you're going to find that the kids absolutely love working with him. We've seen that on the ice so far. So please, if you have the opportunity, welcome Mike into the fold. Mike will be working with the offense and defense, Dimitri with all 3 phases, and then I'll just be trying to wrangle the zoo as we go ahead. USA Hockey changes rules every 4 years, and this is a rule change year. So with that in mind, let's cover a couple of changes that you're going to see on the ice. The first rule change is one that actually has gone into effect previously, but now it's in the rule book across the board. And that is that when we are shorthanded, so if we have a player in the box or 2, hopefully not, we are not permitted to ice the puck. If we ice the puck, it's a face-off. So it's not a life or death situation, but it is a stoppage of play. The idea is that USA Hockey wants the kids to make hockey plays, which means carry the puck out of the zone as opposed to just dump it. So they don't want to give the defensive team, the shorthanded team, too much of an advantage. That's the reason behind that one. The second rule change, and this one is a bit of a dramatic one, is to the offsides rule. Previously, we played a tag up offside. So if the puck went in, if the players, went in ahead of the puck, the referee would hold up his arm. And if all of our players cleared the zone, there would be no whistle. And then our players could go and attack. However, we are back to automatic offsides, which was the rule that the kids played under at 8U, at 10U, and at 12U. So what happens is if the puck should follow a player, if a player breaks the zone before the puck, then it will be an automatic whistle. My guess is that, this is my fear, is that there'll be a lot more whistles, but hopefully our players will understand that they need to regroup and they need to get their heads up in the neutral zone. The USA Hockey philosophy behind this is that, again, they want the kids to make sure that they are aware of what's going on the ice, as opposed to just dumping in the puck, which is the easy play. They want the kids to make a hockey play, to carry the puck into the zone and to be aware of what's going on. So at first, you might see some more stoppages than normal, but as I understand it from all the coaches and referees that I've talked to so far, the kids get used to it real quick, and hopefully that'll be an easy adjustment for us. A big rule change and a big point of emphasis for the USA Hockey is on the body checking rule. So there's a few facets, so let's cover them here. USA Hockey is adamant that the purpose of a body check is to obtain possession of the puck. Here's what that means. If there's going to be body contact, the player initiating contact is supposed to be playing the puck. So stick on puck means that their blade is below their knees, because if they're not really playing the puck. The object is to take possession of the puck. So the stick blade should be below the player's knees when they initiate contact. And the purpose of the contact is to get possession of the puck, not to intimidate, not to blow a kid up, but in fact, to get possession of the puck. In addition, once they have their stick down, make sure it's below your knee level. What they can make contact with is only the trunk of the body, so your hips and your shoulders. You are not allowed to thrust your arms out. You're not going to hit with your elbows first. You're not going to lead with knees or legs, but you have to hit with hips and with shoulders. So what we've been telling the kids, and we've been telling the kids this since 8U, when we angle, we want to make sure that we get our hips through the player's hands. We don't want to be behind the player. We want to be in front of the player, so we want to squeeze the player out on the boards. And we've been teaching that since they were 8. So not a major change here, but we want to make sure that the kids are initiating contact with shoulders and hips and not elbows. You'll see in programs that don't coach it right, players that are going to hit like this. That's not what we want, and that it will be a penalty. It will be illegal under the new rules. For those of you who have been in hockey for a long time, you know the phrase finish your check. And I remember I was implored by my coaches for years, finish your checks, finish your checks. For those of you who haven't been around hockey for a long time, like I have, finishing your check means that even if the player that you're hitting has thrown the puck and no longer is in possession of the puck, if you started angling towards that player, your job is to take that player out. Finishing the check is now illegal. So the onus is upon the player initiating contact to make sure that the player that they're hitting is in possession and control of the puck. That's important, possession and control. So if they have passed the puck, that player cannot be hit. So if I, as the person initiating contact, sees a player who I'm about to hit, get rid of the puck, it is upon me, the onus is upon me as a player to not initiate contact with that player. So you can no longer finish your check. One rule that I really like that not too many people have really touched on is similar to the third man in rule in the NHL. So if two players are engaged and having a puck battle in a corner, a third player cannot come in and initiate contact with those two players. So the idea is that those two players would be defenseless because they're already battling for a puck. So one guy can't come into a pre-existing puck battle and just blow up the entire pile and steal the puck. If two people are engaged, you can no longer add physical contact to that engagement. Not really related to body checking directly is the new misconduct rule. We used to have a 5 and 15 rule, which means that if any player got 5 penalties in one game, it was a game misconduct. Or if your team got 15 penalties in one game, the coach would be given a game misconduct. They've now changed that to 4 and 12. One thing that is worth mentioning, if a player gets 2 and 10 for a head contact, so a 2-minute roughing and then a 10-minute misconduct for a head contact, that's 2 penalties. So if they do it twice in a game, that invokes that 4 penalty rule, and that would bring another game misconduct suspension. So we want to make sure that if we get a 2 and 10, which we shouldn't be getting in the first place, but if we do, we want to be extra careful for the rest of the game that we don't pick up 2 more penalties, because that would invoke that 4 and 12 rule. And one last rule change that I want to hit upon, and it's absolutely vital, is the harmful or discriminatory language rule. That is now a match penalty. Our team will take the hateful and discriminatory language rule extremely seriously. One other thing that I wanted to talk about is the Jersey Pilot Program. A little bit of background. As we all know, the jerseys are very expensive for a home and away kit. What are they, like $350 now for both sets? And we're looking to save our hockey parents money, of course. It's a very expensive sport, and anytime we can save a dime or two, we might as well give it a shot. There are a lot of companies now that are offering sublimated jerseys and socks, and these are a significant discount. You can get a jersey for anywhere between like $50 and $70 now. The way that they work is the sublimated jerseys are just printed, so there's no tackle twill or anything like that, and you can usually order them without a setup fee. The board thought about having the entire program go to sublimated jerseys this year and have everybody buy a whole new kit. And the board decided to pump the brakes just a little bit, make sure that these sublimated jerseys last, that the socks will go through a season, that the jerseys will go through a season. With that in mind, I volunteered our team as a pilot for this. And the thought would be that we have a third jersey. The board agreed to try it as a pilot program with a couple of parameters. And let me explain what those are. First of all, if we're going to have a third jersey, they have to look like the one that we have here, which is the Chicago Blackhawks third jersey. In our bylaws, we have to have Blackhawks uniforms. I actually think that the third jersey of Blackhawks are really cool. So I think that that works out well in our favor. They also want us to get socks so that we can test the durability of socks. And they also want us to get a shell. The company that we are looking at, we believe we could do the whole kit, worst case scenario, jersey, socks, and shell. And the shell would be for the covering of the pants. They would say Lakers on one leg, and then the number on the other leg would be for about $100 per family or per player. Worst case scenario. If we were to get sponsors, and the board has allowed us to defray our costs with sponsors, maybe a shoulder patch on either shoulder for the sponsors, we could defray the cost. We could also defray the cost with any team money that we might have already in our account. So what the board wants is approval of all 20 parents of 20 players, to go ahead with investigating this pilot program. We cannot go forward and do any more research or make any purchases unless we know that everybody is on board. So before we really dive into this, I want to make sure that everybody is on board for this. At worst case scenario, $100 per family. If the pilot program works, then the board would consider doing this for the entire organization, saving our organization money over time. So what I want to know is, would you be interested in being a pilot program and having the Blackhawks third jerseys as a possible jersey this year? Finally, I'd like to end this with a thank you. Thank you for supporting Lakers hockey. Thank you for supporting Lakers hockey at the 5-year-old level, at the ADM level, at the beginner level, 8U, 10U, 12U, 14U, 16U, all the way up to 18U. We can't do it without you and without your support. It takes a lot of moving parts to get a game going. We've got scorekeepers, we've got timekeepers, we've got people who watch the building, we've got 50-50 sales, we've got managers, and shout out to Beth. Thank you very much for all that you do for scheduling. We've got assistant coaches, and we've got to get our players here on time, sometimes very early, and sometimes they don't want to get out of bed. So thank you, thank you, thank you for supporting Lakers hockey. Please also know that it does not go unnoticed that many of teams come to us and say, our kids are some of the best that they play against, and our coaches and our parents are some of the most well-behaved. I've had officials tell me this. I've had opposing coaches tell me this, and it always thrills me to death to hear that the message that we're trying to convey really, really sinks in. So thank you for making Jamestown Lakers hockey a jewel in Western New York.